Okay, so Andrea and I have been talking about this topic for a while now, more than a week, about different things that are going on. And one of the things that was quite surprising in media, not necessarily as covered as some might think it should have, but one thing was that there is a case going to court quite soon about a fine that the EU imposed on Google, well, namely Alphabet, for steering their users back in 2017 to their preferred in-house search, through the search engine to their preferred shopping advice comparison website. So I thought maybe we could start with that. Why would EU, first of all, impose the fine? Why is it going to court now, and what does it even mean for such a case to go to court?
Right. Thank you, Dina, for going straight to the head. How many? Can I ask people some questions?
Of course,
as well?
Of course.
How many of you have heard about the Digital Markets Act? Wow.
Nice.
Yeah, so it's about the act. Our act is in force, has been in force since May 2023. And one of the standards it set was the gatekeeping standards. So we've identified exactly 7 so-called gatekeepers, and among them Google, Apple. There's there's a couple big ones. And the idea is we cannot allow things that you would not allow on a regular market, if there is even such a thing anymore as a regular market without digital components. So we had to think of ways to preserve something that's basically the core of the European project, and this is the market. So to be able to offer to all EU citizens, to all users, the same products, everything that's available out there, we have to keep those gatekeepers
at a bay, yeah.
At a bay, yeah. And this is a very good example of something that was steered toward the platform that's actually a gatekeeper. We don't want people to be stuck with the gatekeeper. It's not fair in terms of market services. We need them to be able to reach all the services that might better suit their needs than what, for example, a gatekeeper is offering. So it's about that. It's about the user being at the center of our, well, if you want, the legislative narrative. I hope I've answered a little bit of the question, but...
No, you have. We'll get back to it. I wanted now to also jump in. You mentioned it's about securing or procuring a fair or fair market for users and citizens of the EU. But there is also a component of SMEs, right? So if Google is the most used search engine in Europe, and then you're seeking some advice on what you're going to buy and how to compare the prices, if Google is steering you in very a lot of maybe obvious, but then many more not obvious ways to use their engine. An SME, a startup that might as well be here at Infobip Shift, won't get the traffic that they are seeking to get. So maybe we can just jump now closely to also this other point of how is Digital Market Act was primarily also thought of and created to protect the small and medium businesses in the EU. So why? How did that come about?
Well, I mean, your question is also the answer. We want to protect the SMEs. There's every 2/3 of people working in businesses in Europe are actually employed in small and medium enterprises. So the SMEs are the heart of Europe, and don't just think of real-time, real-life I mean, we're talking about digital as well. We're talking about SMEs and digital, and we need to protect this as our value, as our market value, and that's exactly why we have to keep the big gatekeepers at bay, because we want to offer. How many people come from an SME in the room? I'm sorry. I think
of course. Go for it.
It's a fireside chat, so I'm being a bit more relaxed. How many people work for an SME?
Startup founders, so on.
Not many.
Yeah.
Okay, but for all of you here...
Some are definitely shy, huh?
Let's say some are shy. Don't be afraid, we're protecting you. The idea is to keep it possible for the small and medium-sized ones to develop. The idea is also, I don't know if I can open the issue of, for example, the AI Act, which is also a very important law on a global scale. entered into force just this August, so August 2024. We want for the small ones to be able to develop, for example, when we speak about the AI Act, there's something called sandboxes within the Act, and it's predicted precisely, it's designed precisely for the smaller ones, for the medium-sized ones. Before they put something on the market, they're free to experiment, they're free to test, free to innovate. We also, the Commission calls on the member states, because, you know, we design the laws, listening to all the voices on the market, to member states, but it's the member states who need to take care of the implementation. So we are always reminding member states to give more space to their individual entrepreneurs, small and medium-sized enterprises, even when we speak about, for example, developing artificial intelligence, because this sandbox is limitless. Before you put something on the market, you can do whatever you want with it. You can experiment, you can innovate, you can... It's unhindered creation innovation. But once you're on the marketplace, then you have to play by the rules. The rules are way softer for the SMEs. And the rules are not, you're breaking this law, we're taking you to court. First we talk, first we examine, we have experts who examine this. And especially for the SMEs, there's a lot more room to correct or to adapt to the minimum standards of the European market.
I'm glad you already said that, because one of the questions was actually, do they give a break to SMEs and like then nag Google and those kind of companies? But maybe we can go back now to the case of Google. So now going to court, Google and the European Commission are going to court. What does that even mean?
Well, we will all sit and watch and get some popcorn. Well, the idea is showcasing. Google is very big. It's big globally. It's a big player, and this is the first. Europe is the first one attempting to control the behavior, the market behavior of big players such as Google. So we are all watching carefully. There was already a verdict for Apple, and the message is, I think, possibly the essence of our conversation today is to remind everyone that Europe is regulating, but why we're doing that? Because we need to combine what are European values. I'm even talking about democracy. I'm sorry if it's abstract, but we can go back to democracy. But also individual rights of citizens. We need to be able to protect you guys, all of us, in the same way digitally like physically. You know, something that's illegal in real time and space has to be illegal digitally. So it's all about not enabling those who have access, those who have the most modern technologies, more modern maybe than what we've regulated only this year. You know, it's so fast, but we need to keep up speed, and we cannot say, oh, your minds are simply too quick, your developers are simply too smart for our laws to follow. Laws are just a framework, there's bylaws, there's talks like this. That's why I'm happy to be at Shift this year to start the conversation and to make you aware that the Commission is listening, especially to the SMEs. So back to Google, this is going to be a showcase for sure.
Yeah, okay, exciting. How do you then, I mean, regarding everything that you now said, and also the whole example with sandboxes and the AI Act, right? And the fact that it was kept in mind while preparing this act and enforcing it as well, to have this this whole phase of R&D, right? So research and development for startups, for bigger companies on the European market, to actually explore and innovate before going to market. How do you then feel when you hear that comment, or it's not even a comment, it's a proper criticism, right? Yeah, but everything that the EU is doing, right, and all of these regulations, they will kill the innovation. They will make it a hub spot for like innovators and investors to avoid. Like, I mean, it must be quite annoying, as if, or?
Well, we need to revise that a little bit. I think both sides. Extensively, the Commission is revising it. Is it too horrible if I remind you how an EU law is passed? Just to show you how complex it is. So the European Commission is the institution that has the right to propose a law. We hand it out to member states, so that's 27 member states. We hand it out to the European Parliament, and they need to agree among themselves about the latest version or the final version that will become a law. So it sounds huge. you know, the GDPR, it took 8 years to agree among all these actors. With the AI Act, and we've talked about this, it was only 3 years. So we are speeding things up. The Commission is aware that time is of essence, and we're aware that we need to listen to all the criticism that's out there, because it's much justified, much of it. So we just this morning had the list of new Commission portfolios for the next 5 years. One of them is an economy and simplification portfolio. Can you imagine? So that means we will work more than ever on competitiveness of Europe. We only have so much to offer, which is so much on a global scale. And I think we need to start also working on changing the narrative of the perception of what you just asked me. So it's about, I mean, if you want AI, ethical standards of AI, is there anyone out there globally trying to think of it through laws? No, it's the EU. So we want to make it about innovation, but we cannot allow, you know, social scoring to be part of a package that's part of the deal of someone that's offering it on the market. We are a democracy, we're a democratic society, and we need to protect some values that in some other regions of the world where things are very easy, but we don't want that. There's a lack of values that make up the core of the European Union, and this is, you know, human rights, a respect for rule of law, and of course, protecting individual freedom. So it's a very complicated thing. None of the answers that I give you is a one-sided one, but I think we need to understand that we have the same goal. We need to be propulsive, innovative, and we need to think of how important. Also, we talked about this, Dina. The purchasing power of an average
I was just about to ask you, like,
European.
what would be your short answer to somebody, let's say somebody from the crowd now says, but we're going to lose investors, like they won't be interested, and also Meta and Alphabet and I don't know, Microsoft, they won't launch the latest versions of their apps in the EU. Like, well,
You know what, we have to stop. In Europe, we have to stop dancing to someone else's tune. We need to start setting standards for things that we know are essentially what makes up our values. And just like in GDPR, we are seeing a very similar impulse with even less reluctance, for example, about the AI Act. So we need to say yes to innovation, we need to say yes to investment, but we need to put it into a human rights democracy. We need to make it live and coexist with what are the core principles of the European market. So it's not just about profit. It cannot be. We cannot compare the US with the EU or with China. You know, it's a very different set of standards, and we want to export those standards outside of Europe. And we want to make it a global aim, you know.
Well, GDPR is becoming like a global movement. I don't feel like a lot of people are aware of this, but GDPR to this day gets still a lot of criticism, whereas it's been the foundation of new laws and regulations all over the world. So India, Brazil, Canada, like I could name so many more countries that have, South Korea, Japan, they have all by now enforced their own version of general protection of data. I wanted to ask you, you mentioned it yourself. The thing is, we talked so many times already, so do ask your own questions, really, if you have one. Yes, so the whole process of creating new regulations and then enforcing them. So GDPR, it took 8 years to create, to get all the member states on the same page and then actually enforce it. Whereas for the AI Act, it took less than 3
years.
3 years, right? So could you give us like a sneak peek, a short one, of what actually changed? Is it that these things are less politicized within the EU? Or is it that, I don't know, politicians making these decisions and approving of these regulations understand that time is the essence? Or is it easier now to collaborate with entrepreneurs and experts on markets? Like what was an essential change that it goes more smoothly nowadays?
Well, I would certainly say it's a mindset change. There is not a single person, be they a politician, a technocrat, like myself, or we all know digitalization is inevitable. We all know progress is inevitable. We all want what's best for Europe. I mean, regardless of politics, this is something that's policy. So this is public policy. And of course, if there are politicians deciding about it, there are 27 member states. They have different politicians with different ideological stances, but 3 years for an act and so many different actors to agree on it, that's a very powerful signal of how important it is. And what's happened with the AI in the past, let's say, 1-2 years and how it's expanding, everyone is perceiving how important it is. And I think we are also talking more. If you want a very concrete example, how the feedback from the marketplace was incorporated in the AI Act, we've made it about a 4-fold structure. So minimum risk AI, we do not regulate. Then the next level of risk, we regulate a little. Then the higher level of risk, we regulate a bit more. And then there's the 4th level, high risk AI. It's not allowed on the European market. So this is going to start being active by the end of this year. And it's actually the structure that we took, the Commission took it in by talking to actual real people developing AI, even with the big tech, I must say. So there's a lot more interaction going on and being integrated into concrete policy design, let's say.
Could you give us an example of what kind of AI application would be considered within like the highest risk?
Absolutely. So I've mentioned social scoring already, with bank software, with state supervision. So to put it simply, anything that might threaten your rights as an individual, as a human being, within the value system that Europe and democracies understand as essential. So, I mean, some examples of CV software, CV AI that will kind of put you in a position that's less of a prospect for your future career. So a lot of small nuances jeopardizing our individual selves. So that's off limits. And we know there are some countries in this world that they use it regularly. Social scorings, for example. This is not allowed in Europe. And it's simply, it's a red line that we're not willing to cross for any sort of profit or any sort of pressure. And I think it's only fair, to walk the talk of, making it about an individual citizen being at the core of all of our laws, basically.
Okay, great. There's been one topic. I mentioned this to you yesterday. I know Damir will know what I'm talking about. Yeah, okay. There is this WhatsApp group that both of us are members of regarding AI. I guess there's more of you maybe here who've been following the thing. It's been going on for 3 or 4 days now, regarding the application of generative artificial intelligence on already existing public data online. And now the question that arose in this chat was, yes, okay, I might have given my consent for something to be public or even owned by Meta, right? Because when you post a photo, Meta is actually the owner of your photo. I might have, like 7 to 8 years ago, maybe even 7 months ago, accepted all the cookies and everything. Accepted that it was public, but it didn't necessarily mean that I was willing to give it as a basis or part of a database for generating new things or training AI. And now there are like 2 sides of this discussion, and everyone's really getting hyped about it. You and I mentioned it briefly yesterday, and the whole question of whether we should start thinking about whether our own data, our assets in general, should be considered going forward as something that can be used by new technology that we still cannot even think of. Like, we're not maybe even discussing it today, but maybe in 20 years we will again meet at this stage and there will be something completely
looking
new.
Exactly the same.
Exactly, of course, thank you. And maybe our photos of this panel will be used for a technology that I cannot even comprehend nowadays. Is that something you think will arise as a topic going forward with new regulations?
I think you've touched upon the essence of the laws and the bylaws. It's not set in stone. I was talking to you about 4 levels of risk when you're developing AI. We are constantly revising it, you know. A product can one day be something, and then in 3 days it can be something completely different. So we cannot settle for anything that's written in any of the laws, because we need to be reactive in things that complement those laws. So the bylaws, if you want me to be very technical. And I think, I mean, I haven't had time to research that. I will. I think you should add me to that group, by the way.
Do that.
I will research a little. I don't know in the very AI Act how it's defined, but I can tell you that the principle is nothing is fixed. You know, it cannot be illogical. It cannot go against you as user. That's the main logical principle of all the legislation. So my first instinct would be to say things will have to be open for revision. And that's how all the laws that I've mentioned, quite a few of them now in this talk, have been designed to be very adaptive to all the new developments daily, if you want, in the marketplace.
Okay. Maybe do we have any questions? Anyone wants to ask something, use this opportunity to ask Andrea directly what's going on in the European Commission.
Gosh, they told me the
Why?
worst thing is if developers don't have any reaction.
Do you have a reaction? We cannot see. Okay, nothing so far. Could you give me maybe a brief overview? Is there something new that you're working on? Should we expect some new regulations coming forward that also these startups and engineers should prep for?
Okay, no. You can relax. It's about the implementation now. So I've been working for European institutions for over a decade now. I worked on Croatia's EU negotiations. So I used to be a diplomat in one of my previous lives. I worked for the Croatian side. So if you want, I've had my share of working for the market as well. And I've never seen so much propulsivity in the number of really essential laws that we've produced as in this last mandate of the Commission. And I would say it was very prolific, very necessary. Now it's about implementing them. It's about adapting the nitty-gritty, even going back to your question, adapting concrete situations that are going on the marketplace. So I think in the next mandate, we will work a lot on competitiveness. That's the first priority of the first 100 days of the new Commission, which is going to start from the 1st of December, most likely. We'll have a completely new Commission. And then simplification. It will be about sifting through the laws. Of course, we won't go back on any of the standards that we've set, but we want to make it easier to implement all that was designed through the laws. Reporting, there's a lot of reporting tied to some of the laws. We want to reduce the reporting percentage by 25%. So all the requirements that were pressing heavily, especially on the SMEs, let's go back to that, but also on the big ones, we will redesign things to keep it simpler. But the biggest laws have, I would say, been passed in this mandate, especially when we're talking about digital and tech.
Okay, does maybe simplification also mean less paperwork for companies?
Sure.
Or, yeah?
Yes,
Okay.
absolutely.
Okay.
Yeah.
Because we mentioned that briefly, that is usually also a critique of regulations. There was one more thing that I thought we might delve into, and I completely forgot what I had in my mind 30 seconds ago, but that doesn't matter.
Oh, there's a question, yes.
Amazing! Yeah.
No one was prepared for the question.
Yeah, no. Thank you.
Because of the advent of AI, there are new applications that arose because of it, and data is used in a new way. And companies have their TOS and influencers and those people who generate the data that the companies use. Is used in the new way. For an example, YouTube has their own TOS, and before that, influencers accepted this TOS for training, I don't know, for generation of subtitles, and that was okay. And data the thing is, now YouTube is generating, training their AI on those transcripts and videos and etc. And what they are using as an argument why they can do it is because the influencers agreed to do for the toss, but before that application didn't exist. So my question is, does this toss still apply because of these new applications? Because no one knew this would be used in this way before.
Okay, so I would say.
Yeah, maybe you.
So your question is that so the content that was on YouTube is now being used for generation, like, or development of an application that wasn't inside. So it kind of goes back to this question of like, yeah, we've given our agreement, right? We've accepted cookies and different bylaws or whatever of a certain platform that we were using. However, nowadays it's being used to train models for a huge company that obviously won't pay those content creators, won't pay them out. Yeah.
Tricky. And as I said, the laws are not hermetic. What I can tell you is there's a part of the AI Act that relates to copyright. I usually get asked by journalists things about copyright, but the YouTube and any other platform using AI, generative AI, they will have to mark that content as AI generated. That's maybe not the answer to your question, but it's one of the obligations according to one of the laws. This sounds, I mean, I cannot state it for a fact, but this sounds like a case for revision. So this is, there's a couple of steps of potential revision of the Commission, sending a letter with a couple of questions to the big ones, to the very large online platforms and search engines. I mean, YouTube being one of them. We get the answer, and they are to correct something that we've identified. It's breaching even other EU laws, so it's a cross-cutting thing. It sounds like something that might become part of one of our questions that goes to the platform. So it's not we sue you tomorrow. It's we talk to you. We clarify the situation. Maybe they're in the right, maybe they're in the wrong. I'm not expert enough to, give a definite answer, but it sounds to me like a case of back and forth. And then if they don't correct it according to the EU laws, and why are we talking about EU laws? Because we're, EU. Are all of us EU citizens here in this room? No?
Or everyone is, but they're not saying.
Okay,
yeah.
I don't know. I don't know where you're from, but if an EU citizen is using YouTube, he or she is protected, or they are protected by EU law. So we probably... That's
okay.
fine.
Yeah.
Never mind. I asked and you didn't answer. It's perfectly legit.
But this would be really interesting to explore because, as I mentioned, so Meta, like when you make an account, like everything that you post becomes theirs, right? So you wouldn't have any of us wouldn't have a case on Facebook or Instagram now using that data to generate, create a new app that will, I don't know, generate the best photos for most likes or most engagement, which they're obviously already doing with their ad managers.
And sorry, if I can just jump in, it's just by some laws related to the regular marketplace. It sounds like using an unjust advantage to advance your product. I don't know. This is maybe even a case for some lawyers, but yeah.
I would definitely, is there another question? Yeah, Damir? Okay. A microphone will come to you. I wanted to mention to everyone that actually you can go to the European Commission's website and check under the Digital Services Act, right?
And Market Act?
Yeah, and Market Act, the latest inquiries that European Commission had, especially towards the big five and other huge players who are defined as gatekeepers on the market, and see what and why they were asked for what kind of data and information.
Yeah, so all of our questions sent so far to the very large online platforms and search engines are listed on our website, and you can go through them and see what we're discussing with them about.
Hi. Really wonderful panel. It's so nice to see that this is also something that people talk about in a developer conference. I more have a comment just to kind of continue the story about the Meta using basically scraping all data for AI. The continuation of that story is that the data protection agency in Ireland, they were the ones who kind of said, okay, you can't do this, because effectively what Meta is doing, it's using AI to scrape all your data, and currently it's AI. But it's not exclusive to AI technology. This is how these companies make money. So what they're doing is they're using new tech to implement something in the terms and conditions, to then scrape all the data that they've been doing all the time already. I don't know if you remember, like 2 years ago, I think there was this app which could make you old. Who used it? Okay, cool. So you're training them to know what you look like when you're old for free, right? So, and this is what happens. So I think it's just a matter of like regulating the business models that these companies produce. And I think that's a good thing. And I know probably some people who are devs here are not going to agree with me, but you know, where do we draw the line? Like, where do you personally think we should draw the line?
But can I?
Yeah. Okay.
But what you said, so the Commission has an implementing body in every member state. What you mentioned is the Irish one. Croatia has its own. It's called HACOM. They've just started the work. So it's the Commission monitoring, but it's also, and that's why we have those in every member state. They need to monitor what's happening within the realm of their national states, if you can even delineate, but you can. So we need to, so they've clearly identified it as something against the DSA, the Digital Services Act, and they've issued a warning. So that's probably, he actually replied to her comment. But it's also demonstrating the mechanism of how the law is implemented. It's very complex, it's not impossible, but it needs to be synchronized, you know, with the Commission and individual bodies in member states. So it's a huge kind of work ahead of us. So no more laws, implementation. This is part of the implementation.
Okay, this is great point to end. Thank you so much, Andrea. Thank you for the questions and listening to us. We shall leave you now, the rest of the program.